Pa, 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 pa. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Juan Catamayo, JCT for Education for You. And today, Monday, raining outside here in Boca Raton, Florida. We have a very special friend, dear friend of ours. And then I want to say hello to everyone. Please make sure that you invite friends because our guest today has a lot of. So, pa, 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 pa. Who is it? Let's go live from Grinnell, Iowa. Jonathan Edwards. Jono, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for
How?
having me.
Thank you, man. You look like on a spaceship, man. Where are you?
Well, I'm where I've been for the past 3 months. I'm right across the street from Grinnell's campus in my house, in my attic studio. So I'm a hobbyist musician and have a studio up here. I've been playing drums for 40 years. So my kids are musicians. We come up here a lot. Students come over and record. It's a great space.
Good. Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock with you, man.
I'm ready.
Always.
I'm ready to rock with you as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we have a legend. We have an incredible admission counselor from Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa. Actually, myself, I went to school in Dubuque, Iowa, which is probably what do you say, John? Hour and a half from Grinnell?
Yeah, maybe hour and a half, closer to two, depending. A lot of twisty roads that go that way.
Yes, I love it. But for those of you that are watching, whether you are in Colombia, Venezuela, whether you are in Chile or you are in Europe or Southeast Asia, usually for us, the route from Latin America, the path will be going to Miami or to Houston. And then from Houston or Dallas, we fly into Des Moines, Iowa. And that's it. And then you have a smiley face. You have John or Karen, somebody pick you up for the first time at the airport.
Yep.
And then from Des Moines, Iowa to Grinnell, what, 45 minutes?
About 50 minutes, close by
50?
car.
So
Or
if you drive,
you've ridden it on a bike before, I think, right?
yeah, I did it on a bike. I did the famous rack ride, and it was 7 days across the state of Iowa, 485 miles. It was tough, man. And the
Yeah.
only day that I had air conditioning out of those 7 days was when I was staying in Grinnell. So thank you
Yeah,
for
you've been up in the attic too. So is Anna.
I've been up in the attic. So Anna is here and a lot of our friends and colleagues. John, so you're the Senior Associate Director of Admissions and
Right?
Coordinator of International Admissions. What is that title? You have such a long title. Tell us a little bit.
Well, I'm sort of a specialist. International admission has long been a big part of Grinnell's identity, cross-cultural diversity, that kind of thing. And in fact, my long ago predecessor, Nancy Molly, any of the colleagues that are on might know, she was a true pioneer, and we're called the pioneers at Grinnell, actually. But she and a woman named Karen Raftis from the College of Worcester, where I had also worked, were two of the first people to go actively abroad to recruit international students in the late 70s and ended up starting what became CIS, which you and I both served for many years on that national committee. And so, yeah, it's a great place to be, and it's one of the things that I do is primarily take care of all the international applicants, review, work with financial aid. I have great help in Melinda Dries, who's been here for a long time. My operations staff help her, and as well as lately, a woman named Grace Lloyd, who is a part-time international admissions consultant and a natural.
John, so we will touch upon Grinnell later on, but remind us, how old is Grinnell College?
Oh, what is it? 1868
Okay,
that we've been around.
okay. So I'm glad that my alma mater has been around since 1843. So that's just to rub it in. But actually, when I was a student athlete, we actually did cross country, and you guys have an amazing cross country team at Grinnell. So when we will go and have our meets, we will say, "Oh, the Grinnellians, are they gonna win today?" You're very good in sports. But John,
Well, that'll continue. We have a brand new coach coming who's also a Grinnell legend in cross country, and so we're excited about that.
good. Um, John, where are you from originally?
Midwest always. So I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a Big Ten college town, right?
Yes.
So I grew up around a university environment and would go down on campus and downtown there, and kind of always understood that college was an important part in someone's life, and that that was it was going to happen for me. I looked at schools like Madison. I didn't want to stay home, but I looked at a lot of big universities, the Big Ten, in bigger cities. And for my search, I kind of ended up figuring out that a small place was going to be better. So I went to a liberal arts college.
And so when you were in high school, were you at a public school or private school?
Yep, public school on the east side of Madison, Robert M. Follett High School.
Okay.
I think my graduating class was over 550 students.
Okay.
And so a lot of the students I work with are coming from much smaller publics and privates. And I think that's, for me, that's something that's kind of hard to get my head around. I've learned to understand it a bit more living in smaller and smaller towns over my life. Having people know you ultimately is a great thing, I think.
John, so we have students, we have parents. Un saludo para Luis Garcia in Miami. We have entrepreneurs, we have all sorts of people watching. And especially for the students that are going to be watching or watching later on, I have a question for you. At a public school, were you on the AP system, IB system? What system were you studying?
Back then we had advanced classes, so I took some of those. My best teacher of all time was my high school German teacher. That was a small program. We actually shared him with West High School across town. He was my teacher for 4 years.
Okay.
He was the one that encouraged me to go and do an exchange program in Germany when I was 16, which I did. And that was something that was really formative for me in terms of my ultimate interest in things international, and ultimately led to international admissions career.
So two things about you. German. German is attached to your heart since high school.
Jawohl.
And music. Where did the music started, and why did you pick drums?
I started out actually on cello when I was in 4th grade.
Okay.
I took private cello lessons at the University of Wisconsin. My dad found me a teacher. He was a big classical music fan, and so he was very excited about that, and I did like it a lot. I did that for I think 4 years, but when I got into middle school, I kept seeing the drum set across the rehearsal room, and kept wanting to go over there and play it. And I had a lot of friends with older brothers who had drum sets in their garages and rock bands that would play, and that's the kind of music I was really listening to at the time. So it wasn't too long before I switched over, and I thank my parents a lot for putting up with a lot of noise growing up. Because all the bands I was in had to come practice at my house because you couldn't move the drums as easily.
So when the drums, when was your first? Oh, my mano from Zimbabwe is saying hello, man.
Rebecca, hello.
Rebecca, hola, stay here. So we're in the musical part. So were you jamming very hard in high school? Did you already have your band going?
Yeah, I mean, that was back when there was like one battle of the bands, and we were like 15 years old, and that was the one gig that we practiced for all year. Every day after school, we were in my basement, and when my dad came home from work, he would flash the lights on down to the basement. We knew he was home, and it was time to quit pretty soon. But yeah, we did that, and we played a lot of cover songs. We didn't start writing our own songs until much later.
So back then, your heroes, rock bands heroes, which ones were those?
Oh, well, you'll see him on my wall if I give you a tour here. But definitely, the late great Neil Peart from Rush, progressive band from Canada, the Police, Stuart Copeland, and then a lot of great jazz drummers that when I did take a few lessons, I got turned on to. Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Bernard Purdy is one of my favorites of all time. Played with Aretha Franklin.
Okay, so for those of you watching, don't go anywhere because John has a very special surprise. But it's about John's career, Grinnell College, and later on, John will have a nice surprise. John, so you went through your high school, then you decided to go to college. And in college, you have two things, music, German, but you decided to go to Luther College. Where is it located and why Luther? Why no other institutions?
Well, like I was saying, I was looking with some friends at Big Ten schools, 40,000 students, that kind of thing. And my parents had both gone to Luther, and they actually met there. So we had grown up going back for reunions and things like that, and I was familiar with it. And I think my mom or dad said, you should at least go and make a visit there. They weren't pushing me or anything, but I did go visit and had a wonderful host. Went to some great classes, sat down with the German professor that I ended up taking lots of courses with in my major, and just felt like, for me, age 18, that was going to be a better environment for me, and it was certainly the case. And my son, again, without any pushing, just finished his first year at Luther College as well. So he's third generation, and he's declared a music major. He's a jazz guitarist and was supposed to be in Brazil on a tour with the band just recently, but that didn't happen.
So he's following your path, huh?
Well, he's taking it much further than I did. I was pretty much a self-taught drummer. He studies music theory, composition, all kinds of ensemble work that I never did. So he's really a serious musician, as well as my younger son, who's a musical theater singer and very gifted actor, I think so.
John, when you finish college, you already have a band conform. So did you guys tour the country?
Yeah, I mean, we toured a lot of the Midwest. We went out west as well and played resorts and things like that. We were a cover band at the time, primarily. A lot of my my classmates, my senior year of college, were buying suits and going out on interviews. I wasn't quite ready to do that for whatever reason. Our band had a head of steam, and we were making some money, and so we would go and play these, 4 or 5 night in a row gigs around the country or over the summers while we were in school. And then we did that after we graduated. Ended up eventually in Omaha, Nebraska for a while, then eventually Chicago, and that's where I started to work, and then did a grad program while I was there.
So you went to University of Illinois in Chicago.
At Chicago, yep. Yeah, I went there after I worked for a long time, 7 years, working with students, or rather clients that had Down syndrome, paranoid schizophrenics, issues where they needed to live in supported housing. And so I managed staff and programming in Chicago for 7 years, living in one of the places I managed for free rent,
Yes.
which is a good thing at that age. I should have saved more than I did. So all you students out there, when you get that first job, try to save as much as you can.
So for those of you watching, I see Ed Bustos just joined. Ed, how are you, man? Hello, Ed Bustos from Rollins. So we're with Jonathan Edwards, Grinnell College, one of the most highly selective universities in the country. Ed, Rollins as well. And I am so lucky to know you guys for years. And today we're going to focus a little bit on the power of the liberal arts. But right now we are having this conversation, musical conversation and career on Jonathan Edwards. John is a legend in admissions, as Rebecca Ziegler-Manu in Zimbabwe says. And you have gone around the world. How many countries have you been to right now?
Oh, I think it's 89.
Ooh.
So I know you have me beat, but
no, we're tied. I am at 89 right now, so we're tied.
If you count former East Germany, where when I was in East Germany living, we got to go on a 1-week trip in 1983.
Okay.
The DDR,
okay.
The East German Republic, and so it's no longer on the lists, but it was a different country then, so I sort of count that.
So what is your rule about one country counts? Because I have my own rule.
Yeah, I know you do. It's not the tarmac. Mine is if you clear customs.
Okay. To me, it's the tarmac. I'm sorry, but if you touch the tarmac, you are in the soil of that. And you and I, we were on that trip, if I don't mistake, in Africa. Remember?
That was Malawi, or
no? That was Sudan.
Oh, no, I wasn't on that one.
You were on that one that we kind of touched base from Kenya. We were going to Addis Ababa, but the plane landed in
Yeah.
Sudan, and we were there for like an hour. And I went down the stairs, touched it, and went back. And I said, okay, I counted a country, and there is a little dispute amongst my friends. Like, no, that's not a
Yeah.
country. I say, yes, that is a country. So,
I think you talked your way into that
yeah,
autonomy thing.
so
Yeah.
I guess let's give it a tie that we are at 89,
Yeah.
the two of us.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that too. John, so you live Chicago. I mean, Chicago's a great place, and then you found yourself at College of Worcester, where you worked for 10 years.
hmm
Tell us a little bit about that transition from Chicago to Worcester for 10 years.
Well, I was working when I was in graduate school. I was teaching German, which I always tell students looking at big universities, like, what's a teaching assistant? Well, I was one, and while I knew how to speak, I didn't know how to teach. And so
Okay.
when I think back about those first couple sections I taught, I kind of feel guilty. But I got better, but still, that's what you don't have at liberal arts colleges for the most part. But anyway, yeah, I was working in the Office of International Student Affairs as an intern as well, because I wanted to learn about that. And at a big school, it's much different than it is here. But I eventually looked up my college alumni magazine, which I always tell people to do. I was out, 10 years or whatever by then, and I was looking at people doing things in my class years, and I saw a post for Karen Klopp, who is now my wife, but she had just taken a position at College of Worcester in international student services, which is what I was thinking about at the time, or study abroad. And so I got her number from the alumni office. I called her up and she said, come to NAFSA. There's a big job fair there. That'll get you started. And so we met, and since then, it happened one summer that we were able to get married, buy a house. I started a new job and moved to Worcester. She'd already been there a couple of years, and they really liked her a lot. And so I feel like maybe that helped me in
Oh,
that first job. But it was one of those things where in 1 week, my life just turned upside down for the better in every way. But it was really interesting
and
transition.
and Karen works also at Grinnell College.
Yeah.
What was the name of her office, the department?
The Office of International Student Affairs.
Okay.
So she's the director of that office and assistant dean or associate dean, I think. And she is in charge of taking care of all the students that I recruit, primarily with respect to keeping them in status in terms of their immigration status as F1 students, but also runs orientation programs, does a lot of community outreach things with programming, does a lot of one-on-one counseling with students at various points in their college career, trying to teach them how to have a successful college experience.
Okay, John, so I think this is a good point to start talking about what is a liberal arts? What's the concept of a liberal arts institution? Where does it come from?
Well, I mean, if you go to the Latin, it helps me explain it, so I always use this. Liberalis is loosely translated. I'm not a linguist, but loosely translated as freedom, right?
Okay.
And so when people had time, hunters and gatherers had done their jobs, and there was time to sit around and start to think about things. And so this freedom to think is, I think, where that partially comes from. And we have a lot of semantic work to do when we go on the road and talk to students who would say, you say liberal arts, and they go, oh, are you a college full of leftist painters? It's like, no, it's not liberal in the political sense, but it's liberal in terms of this freedom. And then arts often gets translated into the arts, performing arts, fine arts, which is also another meaning, but not exactly what we're talking about. Arts, I think, is ars in Latin, which means skill.
Okay.
So sometimes I say, if we do a more literal translation, it's liberating skills college instead of, and sometimes that helps people think more about it. But I think that's what we try to do. It's a broad education that is forcing people all the time to think about how things are interconnected. Problems that we face today and always really are multifaceted. And so the more you know about different parts of the puzzle, the greater impact you can have on maybe solving these problems. And so one of the things that we say when you come to liberal arts college is that, yes, you'll learn other people's answers to life's questions, but you'll also hopefully discover what your big question is going to be and how that's going to motivate you to pursue careers and life choices that will help maybe answer that question or solve that problem. So we see that happening for Grinnellians and liberal arts folks, I think, a lot.
Hey, John, and you see Oscar, he's saying here, or free disciplines. So I guess.
Oh, yes. Well, Oscar is more of a linguist than I am, I think so.
So where is Oscar? Where is Oscar located?
I think he's still in Leiden.
Oh, wow.
Or Amsterdam, but
wow,
he was back when I worked in study abroad. He was an influential character, shall we say, but great guy.
Thank you, Oscar. Oscar, and I see Maria Fernanda, David M.S. Schultz just signing. Now let's move deeper into the conversation. So you guys were founded 1863, 1860.
68, I think, yeah. 68.
Okay, so then now you are one of the wealthiest liberal arts institution in the country. You have an incredible, for a small size institution, you have an incredible size of endowment. And how did that happen? How did you guys inherit all this money?
Well, it was a wise decision on the part of a couple of trustee members. Our science center, when we have an amazing natural science department, it's named the Robert Noyce Science Center. And Robert Noyce was a Grinnellian. He was from the town of Grinnell and attended Grinnell College as a physics major. He went on to work for Bell Labs and eventually got to what was then not known as Silicon Valley and started as he was a co-inventor of the integrated circuit, came the microprocessor, and then as that became Intel, and he ran Intel, at the time, I think before that started, he was looking for investors and of course came back to his alma mater and was a very charismatic guy and did a great pitch, I think, but didn't convince the entire board. But two of the members, I think, each gave $100,000 in the 60s, I think, probably, or maybe something like that. I forget the exact time. But certainly that was a wise investment, and that was the money that returned off that investment was their donation. And that quickly became a huge nest egg for a little college in small town Iowa. The other interesting part about that is that our student center is named the Joe Rosenfield Center, who's an investment guy that you've never heard of, maybe one of the 10 best you've never heard of, according to Forbes. But he was a mentor to a young Warren Buffett, who lives down the road about 3 hours from here in Omaha.
Yes.
And so as a favor to his old mentor, Joe Rosenfield, Warren came on for many years and helped Grinnell invest that nest egg that Intel had provided.
Wow. So you guys have Warren Buffett on your board, and here you are.
Well, we did, yeah.
Does anybody else, celebrities on that board?
Steve Jobs was on for a while.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
No, there are a lot of amazing alumni and people that care deeply about the college and come usually 4 times a year. When I first started working here, I took note of the fact that one of the first things people did, no matter where they were coming from, on the coasts or even internationally, they had an evening when it was good for students, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, to actually sit down and hear students out about issues and student groups and what they were thinking about and what they were concerned about. And that was often their first order of business, in my observation anyway, at that time. And that told me a lot about this
so
place.
we have right now Felipe from Brazil. We have Maria Paulina. She also lives in Iowa. Maria Paulina,
Okay.
un saludo muy grande. Oh, my mom just joined in. Mom, I'm here. with John Edwards. John from Grinnell.
Welcome.
We have Rafa Chandia from Guatemala, from Honduras, I'm sorry. He just signed up. So, John, there is no doubt this pandemic is creating a struggle across the world, and is nothing that higher education won't be affected. Right now, you guys are probably in a good financial position as an institution, liberal arts, but a lot of other colleagues, neighbors, institutions are going to be suffering a lot. What has Grinnell done to support their students, the faculty, and the staff during COVID-19?
Well, I mean, certainly we are fortunate to have great leadership up and down the line. So our president, Dr. Bernard Kington, came to us originally 10 years ago from being deputy director of the National Institutes of Health, and had
Yes.
a career in public health, and is a physician, and has lots of experience with these kinds of things, and can guide all the committees that have formed accordingly, I think. And those committees are made up of staff and faculty that have been working pretty tirelessly, I think, to come up with a plan that was just announced last Friday, at least in the beginning stages. And so for us, that's been really helpful. As liberal as we're known to be socially and in other ways, we're taking, I think, a pretty measured and conservative approach to, the fact that this is a dynamic virus, and it could certainly raise its head in some other form later down the line, or we could be looking at similar problems in the near future. And so I think they're taking all of that into account. And for, I think, our students, we were one of the first places to close down right before our spring break. And, I think students and other folks are starting to understand that was probably a good move, and that we are thinking very deliberately about being able to have, for many people, for most of our students, a really wonderful experience this next year, although it will not be typical for sure. We're going to have a low density model. We're 1,700 students typically, and we're going to try to have minimum of 500 in semesters that will be broken up in half, essentially.
Oh, wow.
So fall 1, fall 2, and then a longer winter break, and then 2 spring semesters, in which we can hopefully, if the health and safety trends are positive, we can begin to bring more and more students on eventually. But we're being pretty cautious.
I know you guys are big on research, and I'm sure that your biology department, chemistry department in general, have they been doing some research about COVID-19? Have they been collaborating with other institutions, national research centers?
Boy, since it happened, I don't know. I think a lot of our science faculty were focused on finishing, teaching their coursework online, which is hard to do, particularly with lab courses. I don't know. I have to say I have many friends in the sciences departments, but I haven't heard any anecdotal information.
I was on LinkedIn this morning, and Trinity University in Ireland, they are doing some research, and apparently cows, they're going to be helping us out. They are putting some.
We have a lot of those.
You have a lot of cows down there. So no, I'm just asking that question because a lot of universities are coming together. I'm sure that those conversations are happening right now. Now, the students, international students that are not able to fly in to the United States in September, because a lot of countries, they are just opening their borders in September. What are the plans for your freshman students, for your first year students that cannot even put travel to the U.S.? What are the contingency plans?
Well, we are going to be prioritizing first year students for the fall terms. That'll primarily, though, as you say, be domestic students, and because the consulates are still closed in most parts of the world, and we don't know how visa issuance is going to proceed, and some of those countries will be easier than others. We've already heard of students who have gotten a visa appointment on one day, only to have it canceled and have it rescheduled at a later date. We don't know what kind of backlog there's going to be for those appointments, and so it is probably the case that many of our international students will have to come and be physically present on campus in the spring. We will have online offerings for them, and they'll be able to meet with their advisors. They'll be able to do some virtual orientation that our student affairs staff run. And so I think we're going to try to keep them engaged until they can show up. They will show up in late January in Iowa. So for those coming from the tropical places, we'll have to consider that and prepare them accordingly, hopefully.
John, out of the 17,000 student population, what percentage is international? And do you guys have representation from all 50 states?
Domestically, we do, yes. And of the 1,700, there are, I think, 330 or so international students. And so 20% typically of each incoming class is my goal.
Okay.
And that's something that we feel like we've grown to be able to sustain now in terms of providing all the services once they get here that they'll require. And faculty are quite comfortable across the disciplines working with students that are coming from different kinds of high school backgrounds and different national curricula. And so I think we've been doing this a long time, so we have ramped up the number a bit. But I think for us in our location, being a small school in a small town, it's even more important that we have all kinds of diversity, and that's again part of the liberal arts experience.
Yes.
These students will learn as much from each other as they will from faculty and staff by the time they graduate, and that's because they're proximate and they're bumping into each other a lot, and it's not always easy. But I think you grow more when you're challenged more, and it's still comfortable enough, I think, to succeed, but also sometimes uncomfortable enough to grow a bit and stretch yourself and maybe unlearn some things, because that's part of our process as well, right? Unlearning.
Correct.
As well as learning.
Are you getting students requesting to defer admissions for next year or not much?
Yeah, well, we've fortunately been able to give them a couple of different options. The first one is to come in the fall if they have a visa in hand, an appropriate date. But since most of them might not have that, they have an option to just arrive and begin enrollment in the spring, or to do online enrollment from home and arrive physically then in the spring. And so we've just sent out a big form asking them what their plans are, what their choices are from those options, and then can begin to plan accordingly. So
you're finding yourself super busy this summer, right?
I'm not as busy as my wife. She's been a big player in all of this, and she's got her office staked out and is on a lot of Zoom calls. So I've really been amazed at her and all of her colleagues that are doing much more work than they are supposed to be doing in the summer.
That is correct. John, now let's have Oscar is asking you a question. How do you keep students and faculty motivated? This is one of our major struggles right now. What are you guys doing?
Boy, in terms of, because I'm not faculty or that type of administrator, I think we're just being real transparent. We're sharing a lot of this. Our people that are doing the leadership are pretty vocal and frequent with their communications about where we're at, where we think we're going to end up, what it's going to require. And I think students, again, understand this is, at least for this generation, a pretty unprecedented situation. Hopefully, being liberal arts students, they're seeing a bigger picture, and they're maybe seeing some opportunity as well, and at least having another kind of experience that, again, it'll be something that not a lot of people will have, lived through, hopefully, if we can get a handle on this. But in terms of systemic sorts of things, I'm not sure we're doing, I'm not exactly sure if there's something that we're doing differently. I think we're just trying to support each other, trying to be clear, and trying to make the best plan for the best experience that we can provide.
John, you are the father of two, I will say, teenager college student, just finished his first year in college at Luther, and now your son is actually rising senior. What are their conversations at home? You have both of them at home. What are they talking
Mhm.
about? What are they experiencing?
Well, I mean, honestly, my older son was getting used to being independent and having a great residential liberal arts college experience, and then sort of had that pulled out from under him, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he's back home and is being productive and is working now again since things have opened up a bit, and you know, doing other things. But you know, I can tell that it's weighed on him a bit, and
Okay.
I think that's that's to be expected. My younger son is going to start really in earnest his college search, and part of his interest in musical theater requires planning and doing auditions, which would normally
Yes.
be done live. And he's a leader at the state thespian board for Iowa, and was going to go to the International Thespian Festival, where he could have auditioned for many colleges in
Mm-hmm.
one shot, and was really looking forward to that. That's no longer an option. So, you know, that's hard on him too. So, um, fortunately, working in admissions, I think there's things I can help him with, if he wants that kind of help. But um, yeah, it's been, as a parent, it's been hard to watch, and I certainly empathize with the parents out there that are sort of seeing the same thing and wondering sort of how to help kids through it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand, and I've been taking courses on how to motivate our students, Oscar, and wellness. It goes all to wellness um, programs, nutrition programs that they can take online right now. Um, talk to talk to colleagues, but the wellness, mindfulness, everything related with mindfulness will be good. John has a beautiful studio where he has a surprise later on. But John, before you give us that little surprise and tour of your studios, I have a question for you. This is our political year. We're in the middle of a lot of things going on. We are in the middle of COVID-19 right now, protests, and yet elections. Iowa is where everything starts. And I know your institution is heavily involved with the elections and inviting, the candidates to come over. Any talks about how are you guys going to work this out this fall?
You know, I have to say I haven't really heard about that, how it's going to happen procedurally. My guess is that there may be some virtual kinds of outreach that candidates will do. We of course had our our caucus, which was kind of different this year. I think you know, we'll continue to see that kind of engagement in any way that our students and faculty and staff can be involved in the process. Um, you know, we've had all the candidates, presidential candidates leading up to the caucuses had come by and given multiple talks and things like that. So that part of being at Grinnell is always really exciting because we get a front row seat for that. Um, but I think probably we're going to, you know, encourage whatever kind of outreach they'd like to do with us here on campus.
Okay, well, good luck with that. I will stay looking. I know it's going to be a very interesting year with elections. So, but now let's move to another subject. And you and I, we travel a lot. We travel to Africa, we travel to Latin America, we travel to Europe. And I have seen you playing the drums. And one time that I seen you everywhere, but I remember our epic night in Puerto Vallarta. I remember
Sure.
Mexico. And you were jamming. Are you gonna jam for us today?
The Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think you were with me too when in Zimbabwe. I actually did it at the public affair officer's
Yes.
house party
Yes.
with some of Rebecca's students. Um, yeah, wherever I go, I mean, that's one of those things I would say to all those musicians out there. If you travel, it's a universal language that you know, I've enjoyed so much connecting with people through that language and through a mutual understanding of that sort of improvised musical art form. So I mean, I think um, take your drumsticks or take your guitar picks or whatever when you travel and go out and find people, and you'll have a great experience.
You always take your drumsticks everywhere?
Yeah, and in fact, I remember being on a CIS Latin America tour once, and we had done the service project. We were helped painting the school, and there was a group that was like a marching band, a kids marching band, and I saw there was a student that actually had like branches from a tree that was
Yes.
playing a snare drum, and I always have a bag of sticks in my carry-on so waiting in the airport, I can drum on my knee or whatever. And I said, oh, I got to give these sticks to this kid. So I ran out there and gave him the sticks, and yeah, that was fun. It was fortunate to have him on me at that point.
And I remember you and I, we were in Scotland once. We were at a CIS conference, Council of International Schools conference in Edinburgh, and you say, hey, Juanca, you want to come with me? I got a crazy idea, and I couldn't because I had meetings or presentations. And you went to see Bono, you two,
Oh yes.
in big concert in Ireland. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can't
No, I
believe.
had that was a great show. That was after the Paris mass shooting
Yes.
at the I forget the name of the club now, but the Batan or Barakan or something, and yeah, so they had canceled the Paris shows, and they were gonna. This was their first show after that in Belfast of all places. So yeah, that was a like a 12-hour adventure,
I
and
remember.
thankfully for the short, cheap flights
Yes.
in that part of the world.
So Bono is one of your idols, your iconic figures. One Love. Can you play that song, or
Yes.
what song are you playing? What are you jamming for us today?
Well, I don't have any other music set up. I'll have to play solo, but I can give you a quick
Yes,
tour.
let's do a tour. And
And
Ed
if
Busto say
Oscar's still
yes.
on there, I think I'm remembering that Oscar's a pianist. So let's see, this is my son's guitar stuff.
Okay.
We have spare drums
Wow, it's
there.
beautiful.
We have a drum kit. I
Uh-huh.
also love Prince, so I love the purple drum kits.
Oh, nice.
And then we have, of course, here's
I see police. I see the police.
yeah, there's a young Bono,
Nice.
Jimmy, Jimi Hendrix, right? Great.
Yes.
Miles Davis. There's Bob Marley. There's the One Love.
One Love.
So yeah, this is if you go onto Grinnell Sounds and Beyond on SoundCloud,
Yes.
you can you can hear what Grinnell students that have been up here over the years come up with. So they do their own writing and arrangement of songs, and yeah. So this is let's see, will this work?
Yeah, that works. That works.
I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play what I call the Juan Camila Jam.
Okay,
The
you
Juan
do
Jam.
so. We have another 10 minutes, so we're fine with time.
It will probably be really loud in these speakers. I'm gonna wear my JCT for Education shades.
Let me get my JCT for Education shades as well. So we're all set. What was that?
I don't know. It's hard to play drums by yourself. Usually, you gotta react to other people, right?
Well, I'm reacting for you right here.
Yeah. Once you stop, you can't. What I'll do maybe next time, if we talk again, I will write a theme song for
Okay,
JCT for Education.
that was good. Think about JCT for Education right now and come out with something cool and crazy.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 1, 2,
2,
3,
3,
4. Get it? 4.
4. That was good, John.
Count off. Hey, count off your future with JCT for Education.
Let's
The
do it.
drummers, they count off the song. They always say 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three, four. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Edwards, Grinnell College, Senior Associate Director of Admissions, Coordinator of International Admissions, John Bono, as Ed Bustos says. Man, you're amazing. Thank you so much for this amazing interview. And John, final thoughts. What's our future? What do we do?
My final thoughts are we still need liberal arts education. We still have big problems that we need to work together on. And I think liberal arts folks are going to be leading the way on that stuff still. The other thing I'll just say, talking with you, is like, make good friends. Learn how to be a good friend, make good friends. We've known each other for a long, long time. And those things as well. I mean, you got to learn your job, you got to learn your profession and all that, you know, your skills. But I think learning about relationships, learning about the emotional intelligence stuff, let's not forget about all that when we're looking at, can I study business finance? You know, think about putting yourself in those places where I think you can develop socially and personally in new ways that are just as valuable.
I know. And John, you and I, we met in 2002, New Orleans. What a great place to meet. And you and I were starting on the Committee for Europe, Middle East, and Africa with CIS CIMA. And we became friends forever, 18 years going strong. And I cannot thank you enough for your friendship, my hermano. Regards to your kids, to Karen, and man, stay safe. And mi casa es tu casa. Come back to Colombia. My grandma says, "Where is John?" So let's come back to Colombia.
We had some great food there, right? Some great arepas con queso.
You have great food. You have guaro. You have cerveza. You have a lot of good stuff. Empanadas. I know we miss you, man. So keep up the good work. And remember, everyone, these videos are housed on JCT for Education YouTube channel, also on IGTV. Juan Catamayo, JCT for Education for you. Thank you, John.
Thanks. Say hi to everybody there.
Bye-bye, my friend. Take care. See you soon.
Cheers.
Ciao.
See you.
Adios.